In this video I will show you how to win at risk, sharing the main fundamentals of the fixed cards and showing multiple different situations so that would help you out to see a broader picture. While 4 to 6 player situations are mostly about self-destructive, over-aggressive or just unlucky players getting eliminated first, and while in a 2-player situation it mostly comes to win for the player who ended up being stronger, the 3-player situations are probably the most skill-required ones and can probably influence the most whether you will win or lose the most of your games, so in this video I will be specifically focusing on them. So first of all, you have to understand or be aware of the troop bonuses. Each continent, if successfully held, gives you extra troop bonus each turn. South America and Australia give 2 troops each, Africa 3, North America and Europe 5 each, and Asia 7. Also you get troops from trading in cards. In order to get a card in the end of your turn, you need to capture at least 1 territory. Playing with fixed cards, the set values are always fixed. You will get 4 troops for 3 soldiers, 6 troops for 3 horses, 8 troops for 3 cannons, 10 troops for 3 different cards. And finally you can also increase your troop bonus by having more territories. The more territories you have, the more troops you get, and fewer territories your opponents have, the fewer troops they get. When you have 12 territories you start getting 4 troops as the territorial bonus instead of the usual 3, and then every 3 territories from 12 you get 1 extra troop as well. So for example, if you have 15 territories, then you will get 5 troops in your turn as the territorial troop bonus alone. And as you can see, I apply this common knowledge in the current game, which is being played against purple, who is a novice, and light blue, who is a beginner. I've got lucky to capture a continent in my first turn, which is giving me 2 extra troops. Besides that, I also captured some additional easily capturable territories to decrease the territorial troop bonuses of my opponents while increasing mine. Unfortunately, my opponents got lucky to capture continents for themselves in the first turn too, but since I was the player whose turn first, I managed to safely get continental troops for myself and then prevent my opponents from getting them for themselves. Getting a few more troops by having more territories and additionally already having some troops next to their continents have helped me to invade them too. Then, as you just saw, the light blue player, after capturing Africa, invaded the purple player into South America to make all the job even easier for me. Instead of attacking my both opponents at once, I was able to pay all of the attention to attacking the light blue player since the purple player was already taken care of them. They might not realize yet, but I'm actually fighting both of them at the same time. So currently at this state of moment, when it's clear that I'm dominating the game, they should unite with each other and stand together if they still want to have any chances to win. My opponents realize that continents give extra troops, but probably they're not that much aware of the territorial bonuses, and since they let me have so many territories, it really helps me dominate the game. So as you can see, it can be really important to be aware of the territorial troop bonuses. Sometimes even without a continent you can get more troops than some of your opponents if they just capture only 1 territory or so while letting you have and capture a lot of them. In this case, as already mentioned, getting a continent in my first turn while being the player whose turn first has helped me out a lot. Besides that, Australia is the continent which only has 1 border, so I knew it will be very unlikely for them to invade it at least before they trade in their first sets, and having that in mind, I was able to leave my initial 7 troops on my border to safely guard it while using all of the troops I get to increase my advantage, either by invading my opponents into their continents, or capturing as many territories as possible. The purple player got lucky to trade in a 10 troop set at 3 cards. But that doesn't change much because the light blue player has already disconnected and became the bot, and it's always easy to deal with the bots. How do I know that the light blue player became the bot? Is from the way it attacked. When a real player attacks, you see white arrows when that player is making that attack, and when a bot attacks, you don't see those arrows at all. So remember guys, when someone disconnects, always pay the attention to getting rid of the real player first. The bots are always easy to beat after you deal with your opponents, so experienced player will always target you instead of the bot in a 3-player situation. So if meanwhile you decide to highly target the bot, then you can make your opponent very easily win. In this case I saw that I will win anyways, so I decided to appreciate the purple player for staying in the game by eliminating the light blue player first. But in case you're not that much experienced yet, I would still recommend to go after the real players first, as you wouldn't like to shamelessly lose when the game was completely yours. So unless you totally see that it's worth and safe to take the bot out for its cards. For those who are not aware of that, you get your opponent's cards after you eliminate them. So if your opponents are low on troops but high on cards, then sometimes you can take them out and even end up having more troops than you had before. Moving on to the other game, which is being played with red, who is an intermediate, and pink, who is a novice, I will show a totally different way how to deal with your opponents in a 3-player situation. The last way was super aggressive, and this one is going to be super passive. You probably realize that not always you will be the first player, or not always you will get a small continent which can be easy to hold. So with your opponents safely holding South America and Australia, it could be nearly impossible, or at least very inefficient, to fight both of your opponents at once. You will get invaded into your continent, and then by your opponents being mad that you attack them, they will be highly targeting you and dealing with you easily. So this is where the alliances come in place. If you've got a bigger continent which can be extremely hard to hold, then it can be the best to try making the alliances with both of your opponents at once and stay more or less neutral. So while your more aggressive opponents would be attacking each other, you would be able to grow strong by barely wasting any of your troops, just mostly capturing a territory per turn in order to get a card at the end of your turn. In this situation I see that the pink player is most likely to be an aggressive player which can take the alliances too seriously. He captured Africa so fast by clearing out all of the red player's troops, at the end fortifying his troops next to pink's border while not being afraid that I could invade him into unguarded borders at all. He even captured an additional red's Middle East territory which wasn't a part of Africa. Then he could have captured one of the territories of mine, but he didn't. And all of that can really indicate that that player takes the alliance with you very seriously. So just let him do all the dirty work to be done to attacking another opponent by him, while you can just simply capture that opponent's territory made of one troop. So that opponent will stay very mad on your ally on him constantly being attacked by him, while towards you that opponent won't have negative feelings, or at least they won't be as big. And obviously when you see that your best ally is over-attacking another player while never even captures a single territory of yours, then never attack a single territory of that your best ally as well, as these type of players can take the alliances so seriously that they can instantly broke them after you just attacked a single one-troop territory of them. So if you don't see a one-troop territory of your opponent to attack, then better attack another territory of that opponent, even if that will make you waste more troops, rather than considering to attacking a one-troop territory of your best ally, which takes your alliance too seriously by never attacking any of your territories at all, and just obviously over-attacking your another opponent to give you a huge advantage while you basically do nothing at all. These type of players don't realize that Risk isn't a team game and that the alliances are just temporary thing which should mutually benefit both of you, but not sacrifice yourself to attacking your common opponent so your ally would be able to easily win. So take the advantage of such good allies like the pink player, or just simply stay neutral when letting your over-aggressive opponents fight each other, when if possible having the alliances with them, so you would be able to safely hold your continent, especially if it's a big one. Moving on to the next game, which is being played with red, who is a novice, and white, who is an expert. I see that I'm the player whose turn first again, so I was acting quickly and tried getting Australia in my first turn so I would have advantage over my opponents. Unfortunately the dice wasn't on my side and I ended up failing to capture it, so probably I won't be able to fight both of my opponents at once, but looking from the bright side I will still get a small continent, which can be the best when you want to successfully hold something even without having the alliances. Australia is so good because it is in a very isolated place and only has one border to guard, so whether you will decide to play passively or aggressively, you should always be able to successfully hold it as long as it's being properly guarded. In this situation, when the red player is going for North America, it would be dumb to invade the white player into South America, as after all we will probably have to unite together that the red player wouldn't become too strong. It would be just dumb for me to fight with the white player while the red player would be able to hold North America and grow strong. It would be quite similar situation to the last game, when I grew strong by having Europe and staying neutral while both of my opponents were destroying each other. So now with the white player as another small continent player showing the initiative to attack another player who could possibly be a big threat if we do not take any actions, it's the best for me to help out white by attacking the red player territories as well, so the white player would think that I'm on his side. Also by attacking the territories of red at the same time I'm increasing territorial bonus of mine which would help me to sustain the advantage over white or at least be as strong as him as well. And finally the last and the main point is that I in Australia wasn't risking as much as he in South America by having quite a bunch of red's troops next to his borders. And also I wasn't risking as much as being the secondary player to attack the red player. The white player invaded red into North America leaving his army there while I just captured some random territories of red. So all of that obviously led the red player to be more mad at, and at the same time to attack, the white player over me. Then the white player obviously over-attacked red by either getting mad or by just simply deciding to play for the second place since he saw that it won't probably lead to anything good. And whatever was the reason it obviously gave the game, by seeing that I could fail taking the red player out I decided just to start targeting white so I would be sure that he won't be able to make a comeback somehow. And this is what you just basically do when your opponents over-destroy each other but when you cannot safely take or don't have enough troops to take them out, you just continue increasing your advantage focusing on the stronger player so you wouldn't give away the weaker player with his cards to him. You just continue to increasing your advantage as you never know if your opponents become smart once again by stopping the conflict between them and starting to focusing on you. Remember the territorial bonuses guys. By capturing a lot of territories you just increase your territorial bonus while decreasing your opponent's ones. So instead of overguarding when it's not needed at all, just continue expanding as much as possible. Take the advantage of that while your opponents foolishly continue attacking each other whichever their reasons for that are. Moving on to the next game which is being played with light blue who is intermediate, and red who is a novice. I'm the third player in this game and if everything is right I will go for South America since the majority of my troops here, but in case the red player will add his troops here first and want to fight over it, then I will just simply move my troops out. Fighting for the same continent in a three-player situation would be just dumb. Don't matter whether it's you who have more troops here or it's your opponent, as you would just simply be giving the game for the third player, especially if he's already got a continent. And in this case he did. The blue player already got Australia and is expanding himself a lot to increase his territorial troop bonus. So I'm very glad that the red player was smart enough not to fight with me for South America, but just go for North America instead. He offered me an alliance, and I'm gladly accepted it. As obviously it would be the least favorable for me to have him as an enemy as with us fighting light blue would get a huge advantage. Red just suddenly disconnected though, so obviously instead of staying more or less neutral I have to attack the light blue player. As it's always easy to defeat the bots after you deal with your real opponents. So if someone disconnects, then you should always be focusing on the real opponents while leaving the bots alone. Well, in this case it was a false alarm, the red player suddenly got back to the game again. But the good news is that nothing catastrophic has been done, and I even gained the advantage over light blue, so it turned out quite well for me. I assume the red player will still want to stay as an ally with me, so with my biggest army I want to clear out light blue from the Africa area, so I would only have to guard 2 European borders against him. Well, this is what my plan was supposed to be. The plan was to have Ukraine and the Middle East as my borders against light blue, but I noticed that they would be too weak to be properly defended, so by realizing that I decided to back out and just simply be satisfied with South America. With the light blue player crushing a lot of troops and the red player capturing North America it would have been a terrible situation for me, so I decided to go with the safest way of backing out, as someone after all will have to either balance out or attack the red player. So instead of targeting light blue, now I will try to be neutral and see how everything goes. It's a very good thing that the light blue player is going for Asia, as it should definitely cause the conflict between him and red. The red player will obviously invade him into Asia after he captures it, and then the light blue player getting mad will want to retaliate and invade the red player into North America. So if they're actually going to fight, then it will really favor me as a neutral player. Turtling tactics, here I come. Or who knows, maybe I will actually have to help the light blue player out in case the red player starts dominating. I see that the red player isn't a person to take the alliances too seriously, even though I'm showing the trust and don't have any troops next to his Central American border, he still guards it very well. So to stick in the alliance at any cost with him wouldn't be the biggest priority for me, because I know that I wouldn't be able to manipulate him on easily giving the game for me. Well, he disconnected once again. I know that he can come back to the game in just next turn like he did that the last time he disconnected, so for now I'm not in the biggest rush to instantly attack the blue player, as I want to see if the red player comes back once again. But as you saw, I moved my biggest army from the blocked place out so I would be able to attack the blue player if anything. It seems the red player disconnected for real though. And with the light blue player capturing Asia, I have no better choice but to invade him and start highly targeting him. I mean, if in a 3-player situation one of the players disconnects, then those 2 other players always go after each other, as they know that it will be easy to beat the bot after it's been dealt with the real opponent. So unless the bot becomes way too overpowered. But if you attack the bot, then your opponent will be targeting you as the real opponent anyways, so you would just make your opponent win. So it's just always the best to go after the real opponent while leaving the bot alone if you want to have the best probability to win. So unless you play with a very inexperienced opponent, which would be dumb to take the alliance too seriously and do all the dirty work for you by destroying the bot. Anyways, the blue player would have gotten me here in case I hadn't had a set at 4 cards, but I did, so the game continues. I think with the light blue player trying to hold Australia and Asia, and with the bot trying to get North America, I think it was the best for me to abandon South America and focus on getting Australia, so not only the bot won't be as much as a potential issue for me, but at the same time I will prevent the light blue player from getting and successfully holding Asia. The light blue player is definitely supposed to have a disadvantage if he's going to focus on South America. So it's just quite bad that he has more territories than me and additionally is supposed to trade in a set before me, so it can be too soon to say. But yeah, it seems the bot obviously got my opponent, so since I have the opportunity I have to make the blue player trapped, so he would have to waste some troops on red by attacking me through Africa. Well, obviously my opponent has just sacrificed himself on the bot and gave away me the game. So now I could just easily take him out and win the game. I hope you learned the lesson that you should always focus on your opponents firstly while leaving the bots alone, so I'm going to skip through to the next game. But in case you want to know, I decided to appreciate the light blue player's efforts and give him the 2nd place instead of just simply getting rid of him as soon as possible. Moving on to the next game, which is being played with purple, who is a beginner, and brown, who is an intermediate. I'm the player who goes 3rd or last, so I'm not sure so far which continent I will go for, but it seems I have a lot of troops in the middle. But of course firstly I need to know where my opponents add their troops, so I wouldn't be going for the same continent. As to fight for the same continent with another player in the beginning of the game, can instantly make both of you lose the game, as that will give a huge advantage to the player who is staying away out of the conflict. So alright, I see nobody is going for South America, so I think it will be the chosen continent I will go for. It's probably the best to go for whichever continent you can get the most easily and then expand if possible to strengthen your position. So just kind of a problem is that the brown player is going for North America, so in case he won't want to be friendly, then he might be an issue for me. So another thing when picking the continents to consider is whether you will be close to the continents your opponents are going for. You want that your opponents would be intimidated more of each other rather than you. A lot of low-ranked players tend to be aggressive, so if such a player doesn't accept your alliance request, then it can be a tough issue for you, or another player, depending which one of you is next to that opponent. Usually Australia is the safest place where players won't touch you, so if you see that nobody is going for it, then it could be a very good idea to try going for it by yourself. It's very good for both passive and aggressive playing. With it only having one border, it can be extremely hard to invade it if you successfully capture and guard it properly. And then depending on the situation, you can either play aggressively by attacking your opponents as much as possible or helping another opponent attacking another player while not being in such a big risk like him, since Australia is isolated place with only one border. Or you could always decide to play passively and just build your troops in the air to let your continent greedy or over-aggressive opponents destroy each other and just simply wait till you have more troops than both of them combined. Australia can basically always work out as a backup plan after you saw that your plan to be aggressive doesn't work out well. Or it can just be simply the place which will help you to avoid getting into the conflicts with other players the most while still getting troops. When I saw that nobody is going for Australia at first, my idea was to capture both South America and Australia and then dominate the game by targeting them both at once. But since I obviously noticed that it wouldn't really work out anymore with them getting continents as well, being as strong as me and having a lot of cards, I decided that it would be the best to reconsider my strategy on trying to play passively this time. So what I did is just simply sent the alliance requests to both of my opponents so that they wouldn't be intimidated by me and possibly focus on each other mostly instead. Or at the very least would just simply feel comfortable with me having Australia. Only the purple player accepted my alliance request though, but that doesn't really matter that the brown player didn't accept it, as he doesn't invade me into unguarded South America anyways. As you can see, I'm using the South American turtle strategy over here. I don't guard my borders so my opponents wouldn't be intimidated by me, but at the same time they would be afraid to invade me as they know that my Peru army could be used on attacking whichever player who invades me. Well, for that to work out I would need to continue building a big army here, but my biggest priority is Australia now, with the purple player getting Africa and Europe. I want that the brown player would be balancing her by taking South America from me. In this situation South America doesn't give a lot of benefit for me at all, but it would for sure help out the brown player to balance the purple player, so later on I wouldn't need to get into the conflict by myself as well to help out the brown player to attacking the purple player in case the brown player couldn't retaliate anymore. Anyways, this position in Australia with your big continent opponents is all about waiting. Sooner or later one of them will crack and attack each other, and then of course the invaded player will want to retaliate by invading that player into his continents as well, and then a big conflict will be started. They will attack each other so much that you will become stronger than them just with having Australia. So in the beginning you're in a disadvantage when it comes to troop-wise, but later on everything evens out and you could even win in case they were dumb enough to destroy each other so much that you would have more troops than both of them combined. Or in case they become smart and don't completely destroy themselves at the end, then they still will be feeling tension between each other, being mad while not really having hate towards you. So after all they will still be much more likable to suicide on each other rather than you. When playing Risk, your diplomacy goal should be that your opponents would be more mad towards each other rather than you. So avoid to attacking others when it's not needed at all, and if possible let your other opponent do the dirty work for you. Especially if it's a game with low-ranked players. But you shouldn't just always stay passive no matter what. Sometimes one of your opponents will start dominating against the another one with that one not being able to retaliate anymore, so of course then you should help out the weaker player to attack that overpowered opponent, as otherwise that overpowered opponent will just simply win and it isn't something you would like to happen. Like in this situation I see that the purple player is becoming quite stronger than us, looking to the troop counter. So if anything I will be ready to help out the brown player to attack her if I see it's needed. I especially don't block my biggest Australian army, so I would always be ready in a position to do so. As otherwise the 4 continents endgame strategy could be used against me. It's the strategy against blocked Australian players when one of the players takes another player out and gets his troops recompensated by holding Africa, Europe and both of the Americas while only having 3 borders to guard: Ukraine, Middle East, and either Alaska or Kamchatka, and since the Australian player is being blocked in that turn, he isn't being able to invade that player in that turn. so I wouldn't like that it would be possible for the purple player to use this strategy against me in case I would be dumb enough to make my Australian army block when the purple player is so much stronger than us. So with the purple player getting close to having as many troops as me and brown combined, it would be good for the game that I will help out the brown player to weaken purple. But as long as the brown player does all the dirty work for us alone by invading the purple player into her continents by himself, I will rather not get involved. As it seems that the purple player takes the alliance very seriously with me, so she might even end up destroying the brown player just to make me win without even realizing that. So I cannot be more happier that the brown player is staying very aggressive rather than becoming as passive as me, as in that case by being stronger than brown, I would be that player who is supposed to attack purple until getting back to the brown player's troops level. So let's see if the brown player does all the dirty work once again. Even if he invades purple only into North America, then I think it might be still worth the purple player let hold Europe and Africa, as it really seems she is looking forward to take the brown player out. But alright, that's good, Europe was invaded as well. In any case, it's the last turn I'm not attacking purple, as if she doesn't take brown out, then that's not that beneficial for me to have her as an ally anymore, letting her get a huge advantage by holding the big continents, as it could really backfire me if I do nothing at all. And awesome, the game has just been given away for me. The purple player has the same amount of troops as me, but I'm going to get the attacker's advantage by crushing her armies first, or I could even leave some of them blocked. Finally, one big army with a small amount of territories is better than the same amount of troops split in multiple territories, as when you capture these territories at once, you basically lose no troops but your troop count stays the same. So I would say the two-player endgame situation looks terribly for the purple player. It was a losing move for her to take the brown player out. I was potentially thinking to splitting my troops and guarding some continents, but at the end I just decided that it will just be the best to going all in on capturing as many territories as possible, with the exception to not unleash her last army, since I saw that the timer was about to run out, so I didn't want to make that army unleashed, as then she would have been able to recapture a lot of territories. So it's better not to end up capturing a few additional territories just to let your opponent recapture a lot of them by making their army unleashed. Moving to the next game, which is being played with pink, who is a master, and red, who is an intermediate. I'm the third player in this game, and by the setup I've got, I see that I will go for South America. The red player obviously has the most troops in Australia, and the pink player has instantly gone for Europe, getting favorable blitz rolls. And it's extremely bad, as first of all he is the first player and could potentially break into our continents, ruining our continental bonuses, and second of all, even if he doesn't, Europe gives more troops than South America and Australia combined anyways. So it could be extremely rough situation for me and red, so better we come up with something. We should either try attacking pink into his continent, or trying to highly increase our territorial bonuses by mostly focusing on taking the territories of the pink player. So I think let's actually try sending the alliance request for the red player. I'm really wondering what he would do, whether he would help me out to attacking the pink player or not. Or another way to play this game I could have tried is to making the alliance with the pink player and additionally getting Africa, so I would be balancing him. But I mean, it would be so much harder to properly team up, and the pink player would probably still have the advantage over me, at least for a while. So unless he would be wasting more troops attacking red, or the red player by himself would be targeting pink while not really paying much attention to me. But I mean, in public lobbies it can be very hard to team up on someone who has Australia. The public lobby players don't really know the strategy when big continent players equally crush the troops they get into the Australian player in the way that it would be equally worth for them. But even then the Australian player would probably just suicide on one of the players, whether on purpose or not, realizing that he would break the balance of the game. So it would probably be better not to mess up with the Australian player unless your opponent would show the initiative to attack him first. I believe if I made the alliance with pink, then the game would probably stalemate with both of us turtling till one of us finally betrayed each other. So this is why I decided to send the alliance request to the red player firstly. And not only for that, but because it was obvious that the pink player knew the strategy to increase his troop bonuses in the beginning of the game as soon as possible to potentially get a huge advantage over his opponents fast. And if your opponent knows what he's doing, then it can be extremely hard to trick him into the alliance, so he would give you a very easy win without even noticing that. So it's generally better to try making an alliance with less experienced player, as after all he can be that deciding factor on who wins the game, by breaking the balance of the game by either over-attacking you, or your opponent. So it can be really important that less experienced player would not be picking on you and mostly focus on your opponent instead. Anyways, after the pink player invading me, and then me invading pink, and then after pink invading me once again, it seems the red player is taking over the advantage. So now we should forget any conflicts we had, and if not to team up on red, at least we should not be seriously attacking each other anymore, as otherwise the red player wins by having as many or more troops than both of us combined, so in this situation we are still able to trade in the sets, so the game should be saved. Well, I don't have as good hopes anymore, but I'm fine with the pink player taking Africa from me. But to invade me into South America was the biggest mistake ever, as basically it's suiciding. All the dirty work is being done for the red player, so red could take both of us easily out by having more troops than both of us combined. I especially put my biggest army on Venezuela rather than Brazil, so I wouldn't intimidate the pink player and at the same time I would be suitable to attack the red player if needed. So I'm not sure what the pink player is trying to achieve by invading me into South America and at the same time unleashing my biggest army, as even playing for the second place it would be a bad move as he just opened me the way to suicide on him. But I mean I will rather still play to win even though the pink player is keep attacking me for no good reason while I'm not even intimidating him. So anyways, I hope the pink player at least will be finally smart enough to stop attacking me now. I moved from South America so the pink player could capture it, at the same time capturing North America for myself to decrease the territorial troop bonus of red, and if lucky enough even hold it in case the red player would be dumb enough to still keep being the allies with me when obviously he could just take both of us out. I especially didn't guard against the pink player at all, so now it would be totally obvious that I don't want to attack him at all if it wasn't that clear for him before. But unfortunately it seems the pink player will still rather lose the game instead of letting me hold something. Or does he really think that the red player will not be smart enough to not take the game into his hands when he's obviously so overpowered? If so, then pink has just been proven wrong. And I mean, what else has to happen to make the pink player realize that he is obviously giving the game away for the red player? So at least the only one thing which is still good is that the red player isn't being as aggressive as he could. In the red player situation I would win easily, by having more troops than both of us combined. He should just go all in on attacking me and pink as much as possible. And also another promising thing is that the red player isn't targeting me as much as pink. Maybe he would feel bad by attacking me since technically we are still allies, and for less experienced players the alliances mean much more than for the more experienced players. But I mean with the pink player not even moving his troops out from invaded North America, so at least it would still be a tiny chance for us to stand against the red player if red was not smart to let me hold North America. The situation really looks hopeless for both of us to win. Anyways, with the red player taking over Asia, now it would probably be obvious that the red player is clearly dominating the game, even for the person who doesn't really know much about the balance of the game. So I still continue doing my best by manual rolling red in hopes that the pink player will finally become smart enough to stop targeting me and start attacking red. And that's awesome, the pink player has finally decided to team up on me instead of playing for the second place. Thank God that he had a set at 3 cards, as otherwise red could have been still failed to be invaded. To be honest, it was a mistake for me to manual roll the red's Middle East army instead of a Kamchatkan one. I should have added my Ghatan troops to Alaska and manual rolled the red player from there. So then the red player would have been still invaded even with the pink player not having a set at the crucial moment. But thank God he did, and with the pink player's additional Ghatan continental troops, the red player was not only easily invaded into Asia, but to Australia as well. It was definitely a big mistake for the red player not to invade pink, at least into Africa, when it wasn't even guarded at all. And to be honest, I am not that sure why the red player still continues playing so passively when not only not invading unguarded continents or capturing a lot of territories, but additionally blocking his biggest army as well. It literally seemed to be impossible for me and pink to recover, but look, where are we now? Of course the pink player still has the advantage over me, as he could at least safely hold South America if it's properly guarded. But at least the balance of the game is being sustained again, and I'm not looking as dead as I was as well. Of course I don't really like the fact that the pink player is trying to increase his territorial advantage by capturing the territories of mine, but maybe it's for the better, as by trying to expand a lot, maybe he will just bring a lot of the red player's attention towards himself. So in case there is a conflict between them, then I could even end up being stronger than pink even with not having a continent at all. So sometimes it can be good for continent-greedy players to let overexpand themselves, as it could really backfire them. Now I will just simply recapture Europe so my opponents wouldn't think that I want to play very passively. I don't care to get invaded into Europe by the red player at all, as long as he wastes quite more troops on attacking the pink player. And in any case, to take Australia from him could be a reasonable decision as well when he becomes weaker, so he wouldn't consider to suicide on me by not having as big army, but instead of it would probably try taking South America from the pink player, in the result making him weak and giving me the advantage. Anyways, now it's kinda complicated situation, as it's unknown whether the red player left the game or not, or what in the world has just happened. If the red player disconnected and left the game for good, then of course the best decision would be to go all in on attacking the pink player, as it's relatively easy to defeat the computer player after you deal with your real opponents. But even though the red player is not doing anything for the second turn now, it hasn't been already said that he disconnected, so I'm not sure what's happening. But alright, finally it said that he is offline. So now it would be the best decision for me to attack the pink player as much as possible, as when in a 3-player situation someone disconnects, then 2 real players always go on attacking each other while leaving the bot alone, so I must destroy the pink player, as otherwise he will destroy me. Of course some sneaky players just pretend to be disconnected, just to come back in the game once again after their opponents destroyed each other. But whether it's the case in this situation or not, the most probable option for me to win the game stays taking the pink player out. And this is what I've just did. So let's see if the red player stays disconnected. And as you can obviously see, he did. And look guys, this is why it's so easy to deal with the bots. You can capture multiple continents and don't have any armies to guard them, but the bot will still not invade them, so you would get a ton of troops. The bots don't even capture as many territories as possible, which should be a common knowledge when it comes 1 versus 1 endgame. Moving on to the next game, which is being played with 2 beginner rank players who are black and red. I'm the 3rd player and it seems I will go for South America with the ability to expand to North America. It's so good that the black player cleared his troops from South America out, and at the end not even capturing Africa, which was clearly belonged to him. So I'm not even sure why he even decided to go for Australia while Africa could have been so easily captured. Well, maybe he will seek to getting both of them, so he just wanted to be sure that the red player would be prevented from going for Australia. Well, it couldn't be better for me with the black player not going for Africa and even moving his biggest army far away from me. It gives me an opportunity to highly expand without being afraid of any consequences, and might even take the game into my hands in case my opponents don't really know much about the territorial troop bonus. Furthermore, the black player is going for Australia, so the red player's troops are being wiped out from there. And the red player is going for Europe, so the black player's troops will be cleared out from there. So that is really promising situation for me. And to be honest, with the red player deciding to fight for Australia with the black player instead of going for Europe, I think I've just won the game. Don't fight for the same continent with someone else in a 3-player situation, especially if it's a beginning of the game, as you're just simply going to give away the game for the 3rd player, especially when he is highly expanding like me, is such situations it couldn't be easier for that player to win the game when his opponents are crushing each other instead of teaming up on him when he obviously took over the advantage. Don't be obsessed with Australia, just simply go for the continent which would be the easiest to capture for you, so basically the one in which you have most troops in, just with the exception being Asia. Don't go for Asia as nobody will let you hold it anyways, even your allies wouldn't be satisfied with that. And obviously when another player add his troops into the continent you want to go for, or added them after you already added them into it, then just move out and let your opponent have it. Don't be as dumb as your opponent just to end up giving the game away for the third player. Or if you cannot go for any continent or if nobody let you hold one, then just simply build your troops to one big army until you see an opportunity. Just the most important thing that your opponents would be balancing each other, so don't forget to always keep an eye on the troop counter. Moving on to the next game, which is being played with yellow, who is a beginner, and orange, who is a novice. I'm the second player and I think I will go with Australia, with the yellow player going for Africa. Not going to instantly capture it though, as first of all I could get a bad blitz roll or just have not enough troops to properly defend it after capturing it, and second of all I want to see which continent the orange player will go for. Hopefully he won't be dumb enough to fight me for Australia. In case the orange player adds or fortifies more troops on Siam, then I will just probably switch to going for South America if the yellow player accepted my alliance request, or if not then building a big army into North America. But as you can see, the orange player was smart enough to go for Europe, so for now I won't send any alliances to anyone. They're not as much needed when you're in Australia since it's in isolated place and only has one border to guard, so your opponents won't be considering to attacking it, so unless they could very easily do so. It could be risky for me to try capturing Australia right now, but I mean if the orange player wanted to invade me then he would invade me anyways, and if he doesn't want, then he won't. So if I don't want to invade orange into Europe, then at least I have to capture Australia, so it would help me and yellow to balance him out. It's of course very bad that the orange player gets the same number of continental troops as me and yellow combined, but I believe the yellow player is about to capture South America, and after him doing so, they will be equally worth opponents towards each other getting the same amount of the continental troops. Then they will probably become not satisfied with each other and one of them attacks another one into a continent, and if a big war between them starts to happening, then I'm going to have a huge advantage being in Australia, as when low-ranked players fight each other, they usually don't even realize when they destroy themselves way too much that the third player would have the same number of troops or even more of them than both of them combined. So it's all about waiting when it comes to Australia. When there are big continent players, just sit and wait into it while letting big continent players do their stuff. Well, it's just kinda bad that the yellow player is delaying to capture South America. The sooner he would capture it, the better for the game it would be, and as well for me, as I want that the yellow player would be strong enough to be able to deal with the orange alone in case the orange player starts playing aggressively. So I would be able to stay more or less neutral in Australia and just watch the world burn. To be honest, it's quite strange that both of them are playing so passively so far. Usually low-ranked players tend to play more aggressively, attacking other player they have borders with, or trying to capture more stuff. Also, my opponents are playing really in the same manner if you were closely paying the attention to their moves, especially how they deploy their troops. So it's very weird, not gonna lie. But hopefully the attacks will start happening soon. It seems the orange player is starting to show more aggression by trying to capture North America. And after him capturing it, I'm pretty sure the yellow player won't be satisfied with it and will attack orange to at least one of the orange player's continents, and then a big conflict should be started between them. I mean, it would be ridiculous if the orange player actually holds both 5 troop continents, North America and Europe. He would be getting more troops than both of us combined, becoming much stronger than anybody else, and then just simply taking both of us out. So yeah, not sure yet, but the things are looking quite bad so far. The yellow player isn't showing any initiative to attacking the orange player, but maybe he just needs some encouragement, so I sent him the alliance request to let him know that I want to be friends, and hopefully he will accept it. Hopefully he understands that we cannot let orange hold all this stuff, and sooner or later we would still have to attack him, and of course the sooner the better, as every turn orange's advantage is being increased. Of course I'm saying that while I could obviously invade the orange player by myself as well, but when playing with not experienced players, it's always better to see if somebody is willing to attack first, if somebody is willing to do the dirty work for you. Well, in this situation it's differently. Currently the yellow player forces me to do the dirty work, but not vice versa, since he is like twice as strong as me, and obviously the stronger player should always show the initiative to team on the dominating player first. But whatever, we cannot let the orange player grow so strong, and maybe the yellow player just lacks some encouragement, or just thinks that I as the Australian player wouldn't help him out at all. So this is why I decided to invade the orange player by myself after all. So it would be clear for the yellow player that I'm willing to team up when it's needed and do some attacks by myself as well, but not just simply turtling in Australia all the time and doing nothing no matter what. And obviously it was better to show the initiative almost immediately rather than waiting for multiple turns, letting the orange player become so much stronger, as then it could be too late, or the chances to get succeeded on by orange would highly increase with him being way stronger than he currently is. So anyways, now it's really up to the yellow player how the game goes, whether he will attack the orange player before it's too late or not. I'm quite weaker than him, and besides that still already did my part when I wasn't really supposed to before the yellow player doing anything. If I attack the orange player when the yellow player doesn't attack the orange player by himself at all, then I would just sacrifice myself and just get taken out for the yellow player's good. So if the yellow player wants that I would attack the orange player again, then firstly he has to show the initiative by attacking the orange player as well. And for him to capture random orange territories made of 1 troops doesn't really count. He must be serious and waste some troops on the orange player as well. So anyways, now it's really up to the yellow player how the game goes, whether he will attack the orange player before it's too late or not. I'm quite weaker than him, and besides that still already did my part when I wasn't really supposed to before the yellow player doing anything. If I attack the orange player when the yellow player doesn't attack the orange player by himself at all, then I would just sacrifice myself and just get taken out for the yellow player's good. So if the yellow player wants that I would attack the orange player again, then firstly he has to show the initiative by attacking the orange player as well. And for him to capture random orange territories made of 1 troops doesn't really count. He must be serious and waste some troops on the orange player as well. The yellow player could have actually become the new strongest player if he had attacked the orange player after my attacks. But it seems he let this opportunity to slip through, so not only he wouldn't be benefited, but that the orange player would quickly outgrow him the troop-wise again, with every turn having more and more of the advantage. So if the yellow player actually hopes that I will be dumb enough to sacrifice myself on orange when he isn't helping me at all, when he would be better thinking twice before it's too late. After all, it might be impossible for me to win this game, whether I did the dirty work for yellow or not. The game for me would still end up in the losing situation. And to wait doing nothing has the better odds for me to still win the game, as after all the yellow player might change his mind and finally attack the yellow player, while if I sacrifice myself on the orange player, then I could be immediately taken out. And that's awesome, the yellow player has finally attacked the orange player. Of course it had been better if after failed blitz roll he would have invaded the orange player with his other army, but I mean the good news is that he has finally showed some initiative by himself, and to go through orange's weakened 2 troops border was not a brainer for me at all. So with me not being just a passive Australian turtle, I hope that the yellow player will continue playing aggressively instead of getting back to the passivity once again. Before invading Orange had sent me an alliance request, but I mean, why would I let him hold 2 5-troop continents so he would become quite stronger once again, especially when the yellow player has finally attacked him. And I mean, the current situation is not that much about the alliances for me right now, it's about the balance of the game, so if I see that one of the player is becoming quite stronger, then I will help out the weaker player out. But for now I think I will try to avoid targeting the yellow player with him so intensively crushing the orange player. I mean, after so many passive turns I didn't expect everything to go in this way. That is so good for me. And if the orange player responds in the same exact way to the yellow player as well, then I think a big conflict between them could get started for real. So now I think it really depends on how much mad they on each other are, and how much they are willing to destroy each other. The game could be either easily given away for me, or it could go into the same passive state once again, just with them having different continents. So it really depends how wise they with the balance of the game are. Do they look into the troops counter or not, whether it's more for them about the emotions or playing to win, no matter how bad the situation for them is, as long as they still have chances to win. And with the yellow player just crushing one of the orange's biggest armies, I think the game will be really given away for me. Also, as you can see, I especially don't make my Australian army blocked, so I would be ready to act whenever I see the opportunity. It seems I have as many troops as both of them even right now, so I could potentially try taking both of them out, but I think the orange player will invade the yellow player anyways. While the yellow player will probably be still targeting orange, it's unlikely for them to trade in sets at 3 cards, so I think I could give it one more turn. Well, without knowing whether it was safe to take both of them out, I could have at least captured as many territories as possible without crushing their biggest armies, and of course without ending up blocked by myself at the end. But I mean, I have a wild card, so I think it might be it either way, so unless both of them have a set at 3 cards. Well, the orange player has just left the game and become a bot, so even if the yellow player starts targeting me, then I could just simply and safely take him out, as it's a no-brainer to deal with the bots after you defeat your real opponents. But as you can see, the yellow player still targeted orange, and with the orange player quitting, I think I could appreciate the yellow player for staying in the game by giving him the second place, since I know I could totally afford doing so. But in the situations in which you're not sure whether it's safe to do so or not, then of course go for the real opponents firstly, especially if you're not experienced much. You wouldn't like to shamelessly lose in the clearly winning situation. Moving on to the next game, I'm the third player who goes last, and it seems the yellow player, who is a novice, got the most lucky setup over here. He could go and expand to all 3 small continents, Australia, South America, and Africa. So it can be very tough for me and the red player, but I hope we are going to do our best to not let the yellow player dominate the game so easily. It's a very good thing that the red player moved his troops out of Europe. It's the only continent which is suitable for me to go for, and with the red player not moving out his troops, it would have taken some time to capture it, but now I could easily capture it in one single turn. So just the question stays whether I will be able to hold it. Even though the red player moved his troops out, he doesn't necessarily want it to help me out, so it's really unknown whether he will let me hold it or not. And then the biggest threat still stays yellow, who is about to capture 3 small continents. To be honest, I am not sure why did he start from capturing Africa, which was the hardest one, rather than going for Australia and getting continental troops as soon as possible. Or with good dice it was possible that he could have gotten both Australia and South America in the first turn. But he decided to go for the least suitable continent of all 3, ending up not capturing it, so he didn't receive any continental troops. So because of all of that, and with nobody invading me into Europe, I'm that player who has the biggest potential here, with me receiving 5 additional troops. I allied with the red player and hopefully he stays as a loyal ally to me, because I want not to slow down and try increasing my advantage as fast and as much as possible. I told the red player to attack the yellow player, and I'm attacking the yellow player by myself, so the red player would really consider me as a good ally and potentially let me hold a ton of stuff in case he doesn't that much know how important the balance of the game is. I didn't want that the yellow player, as a low-rank non-allied with me player, would be having a continent which is bordering to me, because low-rank non-allied players tend to go after their neighboring players. So he better stays in Australia so he wouldn't be that much of an issue for me after his army becomes blocked, or captures South America so he would be more of an issue for the red player. Of course I could have tried sending the alliance request for the yellow player, but I wanted to potentially try dominating this game if possible. To be honest, I didn't expect to successfully hold Africa. I thought that the yellow player will invade it through South America. So actually I have some good advantage now. I could invade red, but I think it's worth a shot to try staying in the alliance with him for at least one more turn and see what happens. I pretend to be a very serious ally of him by highly targeting the yellow player and not even properly guarding our borders. So hopefully that will make the red player give away me the game. And actually it really seems so. I cannot believe that the red player is letting me hold Europe, Africa and South America at the same time while invading the yellow player into Australia. The red player should have definitely invaded me, especially with the yellow player probably wanting to attack me as well, with him leaving 7 troops on the territory of India and probably being mad on me that I attacked him so much. But now it can be way too late. My marination strat to make the red player take our alliance too seriously has been successfully pulled off. With the yellow player being so weak, I'm just simply betraying the red player in order to dominate the game. Remember guys, don't take the alliances too seriously, don't let your ally dominate the game, as this is that can happen for you. As if your opponent is a smart player, then he will betray you at the first suitable moment so he could take over huge advantage to end up having more troops than you and another player combined. And when you're actually that more dominating side, then try to trick your less experienced ally into a strong alliance so you could highly increase your advantage like it happened in this game. Make strong alliances but betray your ally whenever the right time comes. You don't want it that your ally would potentially betray you first and even the situation out. But of course wait till the moment where after betraying your ally you could end up having more troops than him and another opponent combined, or close to that. As even when dominating but betraying your ally too soon, could actually highly backfire you too. Your former ally could team up with another opponent and start targeting you a lot, and with you not having as many troops as both of them combined, you will be forced to start playing passively and become more of a neutral player until some opportunity comes again. So wait for that moment in which you're more or less sure. Also, I've got lucky that the yellow player's turn was skipped, but as we saw, even after red attacking me, the yellow player still targeted red. So even if the yellow player's turn hadn't been skipped, probably the situation wouldn't have looked any better for red anyways. The red player should have at least stayed neutral if not wanting to attack me after I took over 3 continents, as taking the main and the last continent from a novice player, it probably made him very mad. Moving on to the next game, I play with 2 intermediate rank players who are dark and light blues. The dark blue player decided to go for Europe. So to counterattack that, it would probably be the best for me to go for North America, with the light blue player most likely going for Australia. As it seems I wouldn't be able to get either South America or Africa soon, and to capture a continent only after a few turns while in that time letting the dark blue player have Europe, would be extremely bad. The dark blue player would take over huge advantage. And with North America being the most suitable continent to go for me anyways, I decided that it would be the best for me to go for it. I wasn't able to capture it in one turn like the dark blue player wasn't able to capture Europe in a single turn either, but this round it seems we're both getting our continents. I've just sent the alliance request for the dark blue player, so hopefully he accepts it. I would like to potentially trick my opponent into a very strong alliance again, but this time it would be differently. My ally would be having the advantage over me, and now this is me who should be very careful with every and each of my moves to not let my ally overexpand getting too strong. The dark blue player unfortunately didn't accept my alliance request, but we'll just see how it goes for me. I've just captured North America, so I would see who is the dark blue player for me. Is he more of a friend or enemy? I would rather prefer to be friends with him instead of attacking him, but we will see how I will have to act. It was the best decision for me to capture North America right now, cause if by seeing that he wouldn't let me hold it, then of course I would need to try making the alliance with light blue and encouraging him to attack dark blue, so dark blue couldn't just dominate the game by getting more troops than both of us combined if I don't hold North America. Well, this time the situation went for me in the best way possible. The dark blue player was fine of me having the same value big continent, while the light blue player, instead of being neutral, decided to invade dark blue, and only dark blue, and then leaving 8 troops next to his border when not paying the attention towards me. So now I'm able to guard my borders quite more properly, and that gives some good hopes. The dark blue player didn't accept my alliance request, so obviously guarding against him well. The light blue player doesn't have a lot of troops next to me, so this is why that turn I paid the attention guarding the Asian border the least. And that's awesome, the dark blue player feeling threatened by light blue, just crushed his army. And that was very likely a big diplomacy mistake, he should have probably stayed more of a neutral player. To have a conflict with the light blue player would be the worst possible thing for him, as it would insanely favor me with me holding North America. And yeah, while for the light blue player it was neither too bad nor too good move to invade dark blue for the first time, of course mostly looking from the troop counter perspective but not that much of diplomacy, now it was a totally dumb move to continue targeting the dark blue player, as if nobody pays the attention towards me, that I'm going to become overpowered. I mean, it wasn't a smart decision for the dark blue to try crushing light blue's army at the first place, but the light blue player shouldn't have gotten that emotional and just simply let the dark blue player hold North America, as someone will have to balance me out after all. The light blue player finally realized that he has to leave the dark blue player alone and start targeting me, but it was too late. With him not having a set to be guaranteed invading me, he got a bad blitz roll and failed. So now the game is totally given away for me. But still, even if he had successfully invaded me, I think I still would have had enough troops to take the dark blue player for his 5 cards, and with the light blue player's biggest army being blocked, I think I would have still won the game easily. So now I just can use a fancy 4 continents endgame strategy by more or less properly guarding all 3 of my borders against the blocked opponent of mine. So remember guys, do not do the dirty work for a strong player by attacking another strong player when they're totally balancing each other out, especially if it's a game with low-ranked players, as this game is a perfect example of where everything can lead. Basically, in a 3-player situation, if you're not the strongest player, then either attack the strongest player or don't attack anyone at all. Otherwise the strongest player could get the advantage over you and another player easily if both of you are just targeting each other. And finally, moving to the last game, which is being played with white, who is a master, and yellow, who is a novice. I'm the 3rd player in this game, and my continent choice will very likely depend on the yellow player, whether she goes for Australia by herself or leaves it to me. As if she goes for Australia, then obviously I won't be dumb enough to fight for it, and instead of that I will go for the next most suitable continent, which is Europe. But alright, the yellow player added her troops to South America, so Australia will belong to me. Why I decided to go for Australia instead of Europe is because first of all it seems that yellow and white will be neighboring players who could really likely feel the tension between each other, especially with yellow being low ranked. I don't want that the yellow player would capture Australia as well, so that tension could potentially be gone. And second of all, Australia is the continent which is the easiest to hold by it only having 1 border, so I guarantee to at least hold something. And that's actually surprising. I cannot believe that the white player decided to clear out the yellow player from South America, the continent which the yellow player was going for. It is a very bad diplomacy move to make against a very low-ranked player who doesn't have that much experience at all. So actually that's not that surprising that the yellow player as a newbie player decided to invade the white player to retaliate. But when in the beginning of the game 2 players are foolishly fighting each other, we probably already know what we should do. The first game taught us about the territorial troop bonuses. So this is what we are going in this game to focus on. When your opponents prevent each other from getting the continental troop bonuses, it couldn't be easier for you. You get a great opportunity to target both of them at once. So just increase your advantage as much as you can and try dealing with your opponents as soon as possible. Remember that they keep getting cards, so in case they become smart enough, then they could be trying to make a comeback by targeting you after trading in their sets. At 4 cards it's very likable to have a set, so before the 5th round you want that they would be as dead as possible. If you see that you can take any of them out, then obviously go for it and take those cards. Right now I'm capturing Asia, so let's see how it goes. Will they finally unite with each other to stand against the overpowered Asian player? It seems they won't, but I think it would be very unlikable for them to make a comeback anyways. They shouldn't have fought for the same exact continent, as basically it decided the game before it was even properly started. Do not be obsessed with any of the continents. If in the beginning of the game your opponent added the troops to the continent you want to go for, then just simply go for another one. Or if your opponent foolishly took the continent from you after you captured it, then don't retaliate, go to somewhere else, or even be without a continent if you cannot get one. The most important thing that both of your opponents would be able to balance each other out, so nobody would be too overpowered to instantly win the game. Remember, do not go into a purposeless conflict with someone just to let the third player dominate the game. Act and be wiser than your conflicts looking or making opponent.